Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
And state your name and spell your first and your last name for the record.
Michael Zachary Mazzara, Michaelzacharymezera.
Good morning, Zach. Where do you work?
I work with Providence Student Union, a nonprofit that supports Providence High School students across the city.
And what's your role with Providence Student Union?
I'm Executive Director of Providence Student Union. I co-founded that group in 2010 with students from Hope High School and some other folks.
You gotta slow down a little bit when you're speaking.
Yes.
Okay, I co-founded.
For sure. I co-founded Providence Student Union in 2010 with other folks and students at Hope High School. And then I took over as Executive Director there in 2014.
What's the mission of the Providence Student Union?
Providence Student Union is building student power so that young people can improve their education and well-being.
And who does your organization serve?
Our constituency, the group that we serve, is the 6,000 approximately high school students in Providence Public Schools.
How do you organize to do that? Do you have membership? How does it work?
Yes, we have membership. The concept of Providence Student Union is the fact that students have to go to school every day. Essentially, they have to go to work. And when they find schools, they enter their workplace. They find conditions that are terrible and unfit for any other workers, including teachers. So the building is falling apart, the discipline system is racist, the food is bad, and they don't have a say. So the work that we do is supporting students within schools and then across the city to essentially unionize in order to have a say and win real voice and power in fixing those problems they encounter every day.
And how are the students organized? Do you have a leadership structure?
Yes, we do. So we have, again, membership inside of each individual school. It's the students that come from all the different high schools. And then, just as in other unions, students choose a delegate or two to represent each school, and those students come together across the city to choose our campaigns, define our priorities.
Over the last several years, on average, in any annual cycle, about how many members do you have, Zach?
50 to 75. And this, again, changes because students graduate frequently. So we're hitting about 1 to 1.5% of students every year.
And what communities are your students drawn from?
Providence specifically. We don't have enough staff or support to be able to expand beyond that. Our focus is really supporting Providence High School students.
And that's the exclusive scope of your work.
Exactly.
What kind of work does your organization do in and around the Providence Public Schools?
So again, the role of PSU is to support students to have a say in their education with power. So I can call out 2 specific campaigns as an example of the work that we've done. I think that would be helpful. So a few years back, students were very concerned about the ability to get to school. At that time, students had to walk 2.8 or 2.9 miles to get to school, but if they lived 3 miles away, they got a bus pass. So our members were very concerned about this. We heard from students across the city that this was a big issue for them. So we supported students to come together, define their goals, and work on a solution via advocacy. That included a first major action, going to the school board and presenting our concerns. Then we did another action where we invited local decision makers, politicians, elected officials, lawyers, community leaders, to come out to the home of one of our members who lived 2.9 miles away from school and walk at 6 a.m. in the morning through the snow and across the highways to experience what it was like every day for students across the city. So we did that, and that helped reduce the radius somewhat, and then we supported students who wanted to continue to push for a further reduction by holding the mayor and the city council accountable to provide those funds. So in that case, we had to go to the school board, we had to go to the city council, and we had to go to the mayor as our recourse in that situation, and that was what we supported students to do. On a smaller scale, I remember one of our first campaigns in 2011 was supporting students at Hope High School who didn't have access to water. So you're not allowed to leave the cafeteria whenever you are having lunch, and there was no free water. Thank you. Inside of the cafeteria. So students either had to pay for water or they would go without every day. So the work that we did was supporting students inside Hope High School to come together, put together their ask to the principal, and since 2011 there's been free water and a water cooler for students across the city in Hope High School, and it's been copied in other places. So those are 2 examples at the large scale and the micro scale of what we try to do at PSU.
You're aware, of course, that the commissioner has proposed a takeover of the Providence Public Schools.
Yes.
And did you ask on behalf of Providence Student Union to be included in the motion to intervene, to become a party in the show cause hearing?
Yes.
Why did you ask to be a petitioner on behalf of Providence Student Union?
It's been a long time, this work that we've been doing. 10 years is a long time. Other people have been doing it for much longer. I've seen over and over the ways that students can be encouraged to participate in systems but not have actual legal mechanisms to do so. So I don't know how many community forums I've been to, public hearings, things where students' opinions are taken down on whiteboards or on butcher paper, and then those papers are folded or the photos are taken and they go on a desk and disappear. So I think why we're here is that the stakes are too high in this takeover to have that process happen again, and we're looking for that input to become real by being part of the same decision-making table that the people who are designing this process are at.
And when you've actually changed policies before, as you described, what was the mechanism for that? Was that through a public forum?
Yes, so in almost all of these campaigns that we've done, we've had to go to the Providence School Board, to the mayor, to the city council. At times we've done state-focused campaigns, but that's not the point here. But in those campaigns, including bus passes, we had a democratically elected body or a democratically chosen body that we could go to find recourse on that issue.
Do you have any concerns about the work of your organization if the proposed order would take effect in its current form?
Yes, so we're working on a couple campaigns now. We're looking to support students who are trying to remove school police and expand school counselors, nurses, guidance counselors, social workers. So we have designed that campaign with the thought that we were going to go to certain decision makers in order to change the policy. We've had to pause that as we await what the legal path is to change this policy, which puts on hold years of work. In the same way, we've been working with partners across the city to design specific implementations of essentially grievance procedures for students who have been disciplined in schools but haven't had any path to appeal that process. We've been working on that for years, and we were excited to launch it this fall. We also, again, don't know now with this takeover, if a student is suspended, where do they go? This takeover order to control and reconstitute hasn't detailed what process will exist to protect students' rights in those situations.
So let's take those one at a time.
Yeah.
When it relates to police versus counselors in the schools, what kind of work have you done to lead up to this fall?
Right. So students have met with some folks from the council. They've gone and presented to the school board. In both of those cases, they've known that those are bodies that they can go to who have some input and power over this system, and felt like they have an avenue or a forum to go and take their concerns that is clearly constituted by law.
And in the other example that you gave?
Yes, that was an administrative process. I think we were looking forward to supporting students who wanted to appeal or contest discipline decisions. So that's taking those concerns to the principals, taking those concerns ultimately to the superintendent and the school board, and up further if necessary. So it established a clear line of appeal for students in disciplinary issues that is kind of potentially blown up at this point. We're not sure what happens now.
And how long have you and your members been working on that initiative?
Yeah, that support line initiative and grievance process has been under development for about 2 years.
And how will you advocate for the counselors not cops or the student discipline protections after the takeover?
I think that's what's at question here. I think everyone has really good intentions in this takeover, and I'm not questioning that. But it leaves it unclear to the groups on the ground who have been working on these projects for years exactly what process they will go through to make these changes. Even the vision of the work is unclear, so we've spent years working with thousands of students to develop a student bill of rights, which is a list of 22 things that we know students want to change in the schools. We have a clear vision. I think we haven't seen a vision yet from the state about what they want to do for improving the schools. So we would love to be part of that table to say, here's our 22 options. We think you should consider these equally among whatever you're coming up with.
Are you asking the commissioner not to do a takeover?
No.
So what are you asking?
So the best example I can think of is anyone who, I don't play a lot of video games, but if you've got a younger sibling, you know that you could play the game and then you hand your younger sibling a controller that isn't plugged in, and they pretend to play the game, and you think you fooled them. It's a big concern for me that we could go through this process and give the community the tools, but not actually have them plugged in to the actual structure to be making equal moves and decision-making processes.
So I'm glad you're not my big brother. I have no further questions for Zach at this time.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is it okay if I call you Zach?
Yes,
Right?
of
This
course.
is an informal hearing. I'm
Yes.
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
So, I want to just reaffirm for the record, you're not objecting to the takeover by the commissioner. You're not objecting.
No, there's plenty of work that needs to be done.
Okay. Your objection is to the form of the current proposed order?
Yes.
Okay. And I want the commissioner to have a clear understanding of this. You're not asking for veto power over any decisions the commissioner would make, are you?
I
Or are
don't
you?
think, no. What you're parting with is
Schematics of a year. I have a little clicker.
Right. So I think that, I don't know why that was necessary. So I think the problem here is that we are looking for people to say, this is exactly how it should be structured, and I don't think any one person should have that power to do that. So I also don't want to come here and say that the community should or should not have veto power. I think we should be at this table together designing what the process is.
Right, that's very helpful. But how do you envision that working, Zach? In other words, let me finish so we can set the stage. You've read the Johns Hopkins report, haven't
Yes.
you? You've read that clause where it says there are so many bureaucratic layers that nothing gets done, right? You agree with that?
To an extent.
All right, because I noticed that what you said with Ms. Wood is that you met with, in your various very good projects, that you met with city council, you met with the mayor, you met with the superintendent, right? Is it your position that you would, how do you envision this working on a day-to-day basis, that every time the commissioner has to make a decision, you or others have to sit at the table?
I don't want to be boxed into a position that sounds unreasonable.
Okay.
So I just know that our partners in Philadelphia had their schools taken over for 17 years. Our partners in Newark had their schools taken over for 19 years. And over those decades, they were always fighting for a seat at the table as those state departments tried to bring in for-profit private charter schools, and expand expensive technology interventions that students weren't asking for. So if we're not part of this decision-making process now, especially around defining the goals, then I'm really worried where we could be in 5, 10, 15 years. So it's not a day-to-day request. We want to be part of the design. And I'm not going to say further what that should look like, because I think that strays into what I just said. But an individual party coming up with that, I think, is an issue.
Okay. So I just want to be clear, and you're going to hear me saying this, everyone's going to hear me say this, so I'll say this. You're not asking then for specifics at this time to the commissioner, right?
I think we're asking for a specific seat at the table to design the process.
So it's a seat at the table to design how we go forward. That's it.
Yeah, and I want to stress that a seat at the table means an equal seat at the table, where we are together coming up with what these goals are, etc.
Zach, this is
Yes.
very good, and I appreciate it.
Yeah,
You're
for sure.
having a lot of patience with me. But how does that mechanically work? When you say you want an equal voice, does that mean if you don't agree with the commissioner's determination, the commissioner can't implement what she wants?
I don't think that's where we're going.
Okay.
No, and it's not where we're at right now. We understand that sometimes we're going to go to the school board and they're going to say no. Sometimes we go to the mayor and they're going to say no. But we know that we can go to them. In this upcoming process, we're not sure where we're going to go.
Okay.
And at least in the existing system, there is some degree of democratic accountability over that process. If we're concerned, we can go to an election. Here, where do we go to make sure that the decision-making structure is held accountable? So we're hoping that we can make those concerns on the front end. If we're proposing to jump over like open meetings laws and procedures, then we should make sure that on the front end we are as much as possible involving the community, because we're taking away those opportunities in the forms of no more elections of certain folks and fewer public meetings. So we should actually be overly transparent and overly open to compensate for what we're taking away.
All right, this is helpful, and I thank you for it. I have one other question. You've read the proposed order,
Yes.
and you've read paragraph 4 of that order?
Can you, I don't
We
have
can,
that with me.
this is great, we use the screens.
Are you going to do the screens or should
It seems to me, Zach, that you have control of
Yes, I do have paragraph 4 here.
I want to ask, again, I want the commissioner to have a clear understanding going into the deliberations. How do you feel? So, you see where it says before, during, and after the development. So before, during, and after the development of a turnaround plan, the state turnaround superintendent and other designees shall engage, be accessible, and be responsive to students, parents, families, educators, and the public broadly.
Yes.
Don't you, as I sit here, doesn't that encompass exactly what you want?
I think there's got to be something in between engagement without oversight and a total stop to this system. So is there a way for us to be part of designing the structures that we're going to use? Again, the example I keep going back to is the fact that I haven't seen clear goals for this takeover yet. Are we going to try to reduce chronic absenteeism? Are we going to try to support English language learners? Like, what are our metrics? Can we sit at the table and design those? At this process, it seems like we're going to do public forums and things, and those have been really nice, but we don't know that those are actually going to go into a plan, because we don't know to what extent the plan has been developed already.
All right, the 60-odd pages of the proposal sets forth all the deficiencies, and
Yes.
it's a daunting task for anyone. I know the commissioner is up for it, but that encompasses exactly what the problems are and what's going to be solved here. But I really want to know, don't you feel that before, I'm concentrating on before, the development of a turnaround plan, the state superintendent, turnaround superintendent, shall engage and be accessible. You feel that's not enough? It's okay. This is...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I don't know how much, I know there are other people who need to go, but so there are items that are listed in the 60 pages. I'm not sure to what degree the community was involved in saying that there are items missing or not missing. So this says that we should be engaged before, but I don't know that we were engaged before to come up with what's in this order. And then sometimes you're saying it's a plan, and sometimes you're saying it's not the plan. So I want to make sure that we can be part of this conversation to decide what goes into that, because we've got a list of 22 things, and we don't know that those 22 things have been put into this.
Okay, so
Yep.
this is typical lawyer. I got 2 more questions.
Yep.
So if the commissioner, before the turnaround plan is designed, calls you in, you'd be happy with that?
You in a broad sense, the royal you.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And was your organization consulted in the Johns Hopkins report, the investigation?
I personally was asked to serve on a, what were they called? I'm sorry, the panel
Yes.
groups or whatever it was, like a small conversation. I don't think any of that input made it into the report, which I don't speak on behalf of an entire community, but also it's just another kind of moment that represents this.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Any redirect?
Just one question. It really will be one. You said you in the broad sense or in the royal you.
Yes.
Am I correct in understanding that you're not asking that Zach Mazzara be brought in for this consult?
No, I think I've probably spoken publicly or been in meetings 2 to 4 times in the last 10 years. I don't like being in this role because I don't think it's the work that I'm supposed to be doing. So you should mean inviting students, parents, and families and community members into designing what those things are. Not me.
Thanks.
Zach, I just have a couple of questions for clarity to make sure that I understand. You may have said this, if you did, if you have to take
No, that's
over
okay.
your notes. Did you identify how many members there are in your organization?
Yes, it shifts every year. So at our peak in February to March, we'll have 60 to 75 members each year, but then a lot of those graduate. We're working with a cycling population, so we have to build back up.
So roughly 60?
Yes, yes.
Right. And did I also hear you say earlier that there were 6,000 students in the Providence Public Schools?
Yes.
So that would be a very, very small percentage of the students are members of your organization.
I think you can put that in a negative spin. I think it's actually a positive spin. Yes, 1% is good. When we look at social movements nationally, now I'm just going off on a thing, they need 3 to 3.5% participation of the constituency in order to be successful. So we have a clear...
You gotta slow down.
Yes, yeah. So we're looking to get 3 to 3.5% of students really engaged and involved, and we think we're on our way there.
But presently, just mathematically,
Yes,
it's approximately 1%.
yes, across all the high schools. Yeah.
And again, just for purposes of clarification, obviously you work with and you are accountable to the members in your organization. But you are not saying that the members in your organization, that 1%, have greater rights or fewer rights than any of the other students in the other 5,940 students, correct?
I think that's fair. I think there is some concern if individual students are kind of picked to have specific positions, and we're trying to support students that have kind of aligned interest. But yes, for sure, everyone should have a say in this process.
They're not more important. Your
Right.
group is not more important than the other 5,940 students.
Sure, I would love to see an organization with those 5,940 students.
One other thing, just should have raised this earlier. There are going to be many things today that people say or testify to that many in the audience approve of or may not approve of. And while it's informal, we want to just make sure we remain professional, so there really shouldn't be applause or negative comments or anything, because we want to make sure everything is on the record. Those type of things don't show up on the record when should they. Commissioner, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think I want to thank you and applaud you for the work that you're doing with the students.
Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate my commitment to doing work with everyone. And your Bill of Rights, I have already agreed to adopt those when we met. So I look forward to continued work. But I do want to be very clear that I represent everyone in the state of Rhode Island and everybody in the Providence school system, not just a subset.
And Ms. Wood, do you have other witnesses?
I do. I would ask for the opportunity to ask a follow-up question
Sure.
based on your line of inquiry.
within, you have your 2 hours, you may use it however you would like to use it.
I just want to get back to this concept of representation in Providence Student Union. Obviously, the question has been, is it a very small group of students or do they have a larger impact? How do you organize within the schools?
Right, so I guess a good example is how we pick campaigns. I mean, often students are choosing campaigns that even us as staff are not, it's not our top choice that we want to work on because students are choosing those things. So we're supporting students inside each individual school to come up with the campaigns they want to work on, and maybe a small thing like getting water, or a larger thing like school transportation or graduation requirements or ethnic studies, etc. So they're generating those topics, and that comes from within both the students that we're talking to and the surveys and conversations that we do. I should say that even though we only have 60 to 75 active members each year, we do sign up and get information from 1,200 to 1,500 students each year. So a third to a fourth of students or 20 to 25% of students are signing up with us, and we're having conversations by text and social media to figure out what their positions are. So we'll send out surveys to those students, we'll ask for their opinions, we'll invite them to meetings. So there is a big chunk of the city that we are engaging with. And I think Jen would agree we're more conservative about the meeting of membership than a lot of organizations.
Exactly. I have nothing further.
Thank you.